Welcome to the She Builds Show. I'm your host, Stefanie Olson, a licensed general contractor who builds new construction, renovates, and designs your vision. Today, more than ever, we need raw, authentic women who are willing to rise above society's norms, break those glass ceilings, and encourage each other to boldly build the life we were meant to live. So, honey, what are you building? Well, today on the She Builds Show, we have an incredible guest who owns and operates a storm damage repair construction company. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad. Okay, so tell me the name of your construction company and what is it? Because I don't live in a place where there are storms like this. So it's a foreign thing to me.
Yeah, so we specialize in, it's considered storm damage restoration. And we basically, when a hailstorm or windstorm comes through our area, we will go in and we will help homeowners with assessing their properties, if they need to file a claim, filing a claim, and then the repair of the exterior part of their home. So we do roofing, siding, windows, gutters, garage doors are kind of the things that we do. And the company's name is Ardmor Construction.
And where did that come from? Is that your last name?
I don't, absolutely you can ask. It's actually, the way my sales manager spins it is Ardmor wasn't very exciting because my last name is Arndt and we wanted to be more. So you couldn't be Arndt Construction. So he said Ardmor.
Yeah, you don't want, we're like not more. We're not really great. Yeah. We don't want to do that. Oh, that's awesome. So where did it start? How did it start? Give me the background here.
In college, I got my bachelor's in nursing.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have your accent. Where are you from?
Minnesota.
Okay. I was like, Minnesota.
Yes.
Where they have storms.
Where we have storms. Yes.
Okay, so college. Bring me there.
Yes. So I graduated with my bachelor's in nursing and worked as a nurse for about 7 years. And I was fried. I have a really big heart and seeing people die all the time was just not.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. And
I can't even watch a bad movie. So
yeah, no, totally.
It totally rips me apart.
So I had quit my job and my boyfriend was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back to school, be a doctor? Do you want to be a lawyer? What do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to work with you. If I could do anything. My parents owned a resort together they had owned businesses for 40 years together. So I'd seen how cool it could be to work with your partner. And he's like, well, she's not working. I'll just see if I can get her a job doing sales at one of the companies that I work for. And I'll just get her, kind of basically to be quiet. Just kind of shut her
Get
up.
Off my back here. Yeah.
And realize that this is, and she won't be sitting at home going crazy all the time because me bored is not a pretty thing.
Yeah. Everything gets organized and labeled when I'm bored.
Yes. And when you run out of those things, then you all find all the things in your relationship to nitpick.
Yeah. Oh, you did not put the dishes in the dishwasher, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, I got a job. And so I started doing sales for a restoration company and pretty quickly realized that this was actually something that I had an interest in. So I did that for a season, kind of took some training on some of the software in our industry. After that, I was like, well, you're doing the subcontracting thing because he was a subcontractor. And I'm like, you're doing the subcontracting thing. I really need to understand how the builds go together. Mm-hmm. So I want to work more one-on-one with you. And he was like, no, that's too, I think in his head, he's like, no, I don't really think I want you really working with me. I think I want you a little distance. But he got a concussion, a pretty bad concussion, blacked out for a good 10 minutes. And he couldn't drive the truck and dump trailer that they needed to for the business. And he's like, can you go pick it up? Now, a little context. I was the girl growing up that no one let drive any equipment because they deemed me a hazard.
Okay.
So I went.
Warning.
Warning. And he knew that. I mean, he knew that my family didn't trust me with equipment. And I had driven this trailer on a straight road back from Wisconsin and I'd never driven it. But I went and I picked it up and I got it home and everything was in one piece. And then he needed it dropped off the next day and at another place. So I dropped it off and he very quickly realized the asset that he had on his hand. He's like, oh, sure, you can help me now. So I did truck and dump trailer that whole season. I went through the process of getting all the things I needed to get squared away to do that. And then I drove truck and dump trailer for 9 months.
Uh-huh.
And I was putting in 14-hour days. And
yeah, it's a lot of work.
So it was a lot of work, but I learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that, I'm like, okay, I got this figured out. But the company that I had done sales for was like hundreds of thousands of dollars behind on their accounts receivable and no process to collect them. So in our side of things, when an insurance misses line items or they're low, there's what's called a supplement that's sent to the insurance company. And they had like 50 to build and they take a fair amount of time. And so I'm like, well, I'm still an independent contractor with your company. I'll just come in and start cleaning some of this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
Within a couple of months, realized like maybe we should actually make a position for her. So I came in as operations manager and I hired subcontractors, I hired salespeople, I managed their process, and I took them from less than $1 million a year company to when I left, they were a $4 million a year company. And so, but all of this to say it was a great place to learn, terrible working environment. And I won't even mention all the things that the owner did that I was just like, I don't agree with this. Well, they got a big storm in 2017 and there was work piling in. And I'm like, I was already maxed at what I could do. And he wasn't willing to hire any other help. So I'm like, I'm out. Like, I can't do this anymore. And so I went to Abe and I said, will you give me a loan to start my own? And he said, yeah, that's fine. So I started Ardmor in 2017 and it's kind of been a little bit of a ride. That's how it started. Sorry, that was a long explanation.
No, I love it. I love it. I love all the details. It's perfect. So then after you just like got the loan, I mean, you now you're like a fully functioning, like, no. Do you have a license? Like what's happening now?
So I didn't quit my job at the company that I was at. We decided on Labor Day weekend. And you have started a construction company, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So we decided Labor Day
to build a website.
Yes, it does. I decided Labor Day weekend. I went back and I started studying for my test and took my test. And everything just started to kind of happen like way faster than anyone said it would. When I went to talk to the lawyer about what it would look like to draft up agreements and kind of figure out what I needed to do, he's like, well, usually it's 4 to 6 weeks before you get your license. And I had just taken my test.
What type of license did you get?
General contractor's license.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like a couple days before that I took my license. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to sign right now for this package that we have to get all this stuff put together because I suspect this is going to move faster than anyone intended. And within a week, I had my license.
Oh, wow.
And so we decided Labor Day, and by Halloween, we were out selling. We had a website that was functional. We had contracts that were up. We had shirts. Everything was up and ready to go within. And so within 4 or 5 weeks of me quitting my job, we were out doing sales. And that included getting a full office. When I set up Ardmor, I've always kind of had a fascination with systems. And so I'm like the girl that's like, how can I do this more efficiently? How can I do this better? How can I make sure that this is like the best possible way to do this? And so from day one, I wanted to set Ardmor up that if I wanted to scale it to $100 million a year company, I could.
Yeah, girl.
And so I did a lot of things that people wouldn't necessarily do you don't need to do to start a general contracting company. I know a lot of people will start out of their basement or will just start doing sales the way that they are. We'll just do whatever. They won't necessarily do things the way that I chose to do things. We started off right away with a CRM. We started off right away buying iPads for our sales guys. We started off, I had to make one of the early decisions that I had to make early on was, are we going to go paper or are we going to go digital for all of our files? We went digital because I just figured that was more scalable. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So like, tell me like your top 2 like softwares or systems that you're just like, you love and couldn't live without and like other people could benefit from.
So we have a CRM that I like. I don't know that I'm in love with our CRM, but I would say probably.
What's the company?
AccuLynx.
Okay, I haven't heard of that.
It's a niche. It's basically for the storm restoration market. It's expensive. We're currently have about 30 users and we're spending about $85,000 a year on it. So I'm questioning whether or not that's something I actually want to use going forward. I would say Trello is an amazing.
That's like I was like, yes, I like have a whole podcast about Trello.
Do you really? I might have to go back and listen to it. No, Trello is amazing. And Trello is actually one of those things where I had different team members that actually started using it, and I have just embraced it within the last couple of months. But it's a game changer as far as your ability to organize things. And then I think anyone, whatever email you have, you need a management system for managing your email.
Tell me more.
So you can't have, when things come into your inbox, you kind of need to make a decision. Is this something I can do? This is how I operate. If it comes in, something I can do within less than a minute or two, I will just do it right then and there and get it done so that it's not something that's going onto a to-do list. If it's a project, it'll move into a folder that's kind of a projects folder. Information will be held in Trello, but I can quickly and easily access it. And then I have a to-do list in Trello that holds my to-do list, and I just pull that stuff out of there. So my inbox is usually empty about 6 times a day, where there's nothing in my inbox and everything else gets filed away.
I'm so jealous. Have you heard of Superhuman? If you like emails, or you're in email a lot, have you ever heard of Superhuman?
Is it an organizer or what?
No, it's an email. It's like basically do you have Gmail? Do you use Gmail?
We have Outlook. We made a transfer to that when we got, no. So Outlook is what we use.
Okay. So if you have, I'll just let you know if you have, I despise Outlook. I'll just be honest. If you have Gmail, you can get Superhuman, but it only connects to Gmail. But what it is it's an email system that is all keystroke decisions. So you never pick up your mouse to click and move or do anything. So if I want to open an email, if I want to compose an email, if I want to send an email, if I want to put it, you can do reminders of you just click H and it brings up the time and date that you want to be reminded to bring that email back into your inbox. And then everything else just goes once you're done with it, it goes to done. And if you get 0 inbox, they have a new picture every day. It's and it's a pretty picture. It's so satisfying. I'm like, oh my God, look at the cheetah. It's so cute. And so it's it gets you excited to have
a little brain candy.
Yeah, it has a 0. It says 0 inbox, 3 days in a row. With me, it's 1 day. I don't get very long streaks, but it's so satisfying. And I come from an accounting background. So using the keyboard and the 10 key and not having to pick up my mouse is how my brain and fingers are trained. And I just you can get through them so quickly and you can, I don't know. I love it. I love it. And my husband started using it and he's it's so much easier than and then when you go back to your Outlook or Gmail, you just want to stab it because it's so useful. So
one of the things that I've started to transition to in the last year, because I've realized I'm going to start venturing into other businesses, and this business is getting to the point where I've got the managers in place that I need, and then I will start venturing into other businesses. But in order for me to do that, I needed to outsource a lot of things. So I've outsourced my email now, my email management now. But if I have an employee who's struggling, the number one thing I go to ask them, can I see your inbox?
Yes, right.
And usually what's happened is they don't have a system for managing the stuff that gets in there. They don't have a way of quickly and easily sorting through what's important, what I need as a resource and what I don't. And so then it all stays there. And the important things that they need to get to, they have no method for getting back to them. So then they're missing things because they've got 5,000 things in their email.
Right. So in that instance, what do you coach them? How do you coach them? What do you tell them to do? What's your method? Just kind of what you just explained, or do you have other systems for your employees, utilize Trello?
I think that each person is going to have to figure out their own method for what's going to work. Mm-hmm. I will show them what I do. I'll pull open a Teams meeting and I'll just share my screen and I'll say, okay, this is how I'm managing my email. This is how I do this. And then I say, okay, now here are 3 other people on the team that I'd like you to go meet with, because they all have little different tweaks to managing their own things. They use their calendar, they use this, they use whatever. And so, yeah, so I will outsource to other members on the team that have different methods. And then usually what happens is they will kind of come with a
solution that works for them type thing.
The other thing that I like is, so as we've implemented Trello actually has a extension for Outlook. As something comes in, I can add it to my Trello board, or I can add a comment to my Trello board or move something on the Trello board based on the message that has just come in. So that's definitely something that we've utilized as well.
Wow. I love it. I love your systems. Okay. So then how many employees do you guys have? Like how big is the company now?
So we currently have, I don't actually know the number of employees because we have some sales guys are independent, some are employees. So we have roughly 25, 26 employees.
Wow. So does that scare you?
That's a really interesting question because I think that there have been moments where you have this thing that you push up against. I remember the first time that we had $100,000 in the bank. And it was like this, and this, we're not talking my personal accounts, we're talking the business. But when I had that $100,000, I just had this moment where I just got drenched in like cold sweat because it's like, and now if I was to have $100,000 in my bank account, I'd be like,
more cold sweat, bad cold sweat.
It's really interesting that you asked me some of those. We are at the point where we're kind of, so as I guess I will push up against like kind of an unknown like ceiling in my own mental like abilities or like my own, and when I get to that, it's stressful. Yeah. But then as I push through it, you get beyond that and you don't even think about it anymore. It's just like, okay, yep, that's what it is. And it's just,
Right. Of those employees, I guess I just kind of want to like know a little bit more about the business. Like, what's your training system like? Because, in your hiring and all of that, like, did you create all of those systems and like training manuals and like, how do we make sure that people aren't falling off roofs and, assessing damages? And did you just kind of learn that and glean some things from that other company that you worked for and then implemented new strategies? Like your little brain must have been just working away because this hasn't been that long that you've had this company.
No, it's been really interesting. And I think that I learned mostly what not to do with the other company,
which is helpful.
But it's very helpful. And it's been very helpful to see all of that. So eventually my boyfriend, I call him my life partner. I don't really know what to even call him. We've been together for 14 years. So it's we've been together a long time. Yeah, my man. But he has 30 years of experience in the construction field. So he's been watching companies over these years. And so he kind of has an idea of what not to do or what to do. And so he's worked on a lot of commercial sites. So as far as like the safety and kind of some of those things, we do not have an official training manual. And part of that is we are still very much a startup culture. So if I was to sit down and write out a training manual, next week something would change. Right. And then I would have to start over in that area. And so I did a lot of training and now I have managers. So kind of are you kind of wondering the structure of the company is kind of how it's set up?
I just like, because like there's so many people out, listeners and people that want to grow a company. And it's like, maybe like what was the first, probably most important steps that you think, like if somebody's starting a business and wants to be able to scale, obviously there's like overcoming fear, but I think really like your niche and what you're good at is really creating systems and then delegating. I mean, it sounds like.
Yes. So I think there's a couple things. One, I think you have to be willing to look at things from a different perspective than necessarily what other people are doing. Because what we have done in our company, I don't know of a single company in the space that we're in that is set up the way that we're set up.
Like why? What's the difference?
So we have our own, so many companies that work in our space have project managers that are the sales guys that also, so they'll meet with the homeowner, they'll meet with the insurance adjuster, they'll write up the estimates to send to the insurance company, they'll negotiate with the insurance company, they will do the material selection, and they will be picking up the materials at the end of the project and the check. What I have found was many of the people who are very good at selling are terrible with paperwork, and they are terrible with like making sure that all of the pieces for production are handled well. So what that ends up resulting in for the homeowner is they don't get someone who's the best at what they do, just working on that part of their project. So when I realized that we have to have salespeople, but I don't think that they should be the ones doing material selections with homeowners, because what I would have sales guys that would take a shingle board out to a homeowner's house and say, okay, pick one of these colors from this 1-inch piece of shingle.
Right.
And then the homeowner gets the color on their house and it's like, well, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we have sales guys that sell, and that's all they do. So they get to do the fun part. That's the part that they love. They go, they chase those dollars, they get the sale, and then they get to move on. Right. They literally sign 2 pieces of paper. That's it. They don't have to, and they have to put some messages in the system. There's a few other things that they have to do, but they don't have to do all the material selection and all the paperwork and making sure all the T's are dotted and the I's are, T's are crossed and I's are dotted for the,
right.
just for the paperwork side of it, so that I know as a business owner that I'm covered. Because I was, I would wake up in the night just stressing about the fact that someone had lost this contract. I had a sales guy once that lost a $16,000 check.
Oh,
it happens, but like not what I wanted to have happen.
Yeah,
so
it shouldn't.
It shouldn't. And so, and talking to other companies, my sales guys were good. My sales guys were doing well. Like, we background checked them. We knew who they were. They didn't have criminal records. They weren't on drugs, but it just wasn't their skill set. So I looked at this and said, how can we do this differently? I don't care if that's how someone else did it. Like, if that's not the best way to do it, why are we still doing it that way? I don't have to do it because 5 generations have done it this way. Doesn't mean that that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So I think being willing to look at something from a different perspective, weigh the pros and cons of making that shift, and then being willing to shift to do something a little bit different than the people that you see around you can put you in a position to really be able to scale and to do things that other people can't do and to provide better service than anybody can.
Right. And I think that that's what it is. It's like you recognize that there's a lack of service, and people in your scenario, from the client's perspective, they just had something horrible happen. And to not feel communicated with or taken care of, or end up with a house, roof color that they don't want because there wasn't care taken into that process. Like, I love that you're like really making it customer focus and in organizing your systems around making sure that they're taken care of through each step. And then also you're taking your employees and you're not asking them to do things that they're not good at, which is really where we want every single employee. We want them like in their best seat. Like I always say that, like, you're either in the right fit and the right seat, or you're the right fit and you're in the wrong seat.
Yep.
Or you're in the wrong seat and the wrong fit and you're out.
And so because your audience is you're exactly right with what you're saying there. Because your audience is a lot of women, I think the other thing that women need to lean into is a lot of us have an intuition, and learning when to trust it and when to question it. Because there is a time when your intuition is telling you to do something and your brain is saying no, and kind of being able, by trial and error, meaning trust your intuition and then kind of rethink about when things don't go exactly right or when things go well. What was it about that situation? Did I not let my brain think through the pros and cons to why I was having the intuition that I was? A lot of why I've been successful in business is because I've been able to lean into my intuition and lean into my gut. And I've learned through time to know when I need to kind of question my intuition, because sometimes my intuition is just a past experience and not necessarily something that truly relates. So that trial and error is something that I think we can really lean into as women, that can really provide us a different look. And we look at life differently. So when we're in a male-dominated field, we don't have to do things the way that everybody else has always done them.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I love it, because you're not just like the one person running around with like a messy truck with all the like papers everywhere trying to keep track of anything. It's like, like we have systems and we're organized and we're efficient and we're giving good service. And I think that's exactly how you grow a business. And beautiful job. I love it. I love all the details. What about one thing from your business that you did not expect?
I didn't expect that I would give up so many things that were my identity and how hard that would be. So as a woman, I identified so much with taking care of Abraham and, my partner, taking care of him and, keeping the house clean and cooking and doing all of those things. And I remember when I realized that I had to hire out the cleaning and laundry, it was actually really, really hard for me, because so much of my identity was in doing that for my family, to be able to say, because I was working 7 days a week, when you took in the meal prep and the making food and the laundry and the cleaning, yes, I was physically breaking because I was working in the office. I was working like 90 hours a week. And so then you add in all of the other stuff. I was putting 110-hour weeks in, and I was just like, there was nothing more to give. And it was like, okay, I have to, in order to not have a complete mental breakdown, I have to let something go. And so I did not expect that I would be in the place where I am today, where I have an assistant in the office, I have a nanny that helps me, I have a cleaning lady, I have a lawn care person, I have a chef that we order our meals from. I did not expect that my life would look like it does in that respect. And some people would be like, well, why is that hard for you? Like, that sounds like such a weird thing to be, but
I don't think that at all, because I think there's a level of like internal maternal instinct and emotional, how you feel emotionally tied to providing for your family in a holistic, motherly, I need to take care of the house, I need to take care of the children, I need to take care of the food, I need to take care of the meals. And when you can't do it all, you feel like a failure. I mean, that's how I feel.
and that is exactly how I felt. And so that wasn't, and it's been a huge blessing. I am able to mentally and emotionally be present when I'm done with work because I have all those things off of my plate. And so I acknowledge now that those are a good thing to have given up, but it was a loss in that season.
So. I agree. And then you get mad when they don't fold the towels right. No. Oh, just me? Just kidding.
I don't know. Speak for yourself.
Yeah, just me? Oh, okay. I just go and like refold towels quietly.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
I'm just kidding. Okay. Did COVID impact your business at all?
It's really interesting because when COVID hit, yes, it did. It didn't impact like the dollars. Like although last year was a little lean on all accounts, but we didn't have a storm. So I don't know that we could necessarily say it was COVID. It has certainly impacted. There have been seasons where it has impacted. We worked 2020, we went entirely remote with the office, which I would strongly advise someone to think seriously about going fully remote with a construction company office, because there are so many moving parts that you have to discuss that without having. And the other thing that we found was that people weren't as engaged. And so when they didn't have that team environment, so we went fully remote there and kind of realized that it didn't work for our company, at least. And we really didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
We had great people, and so we didn't really lay anybody off. And so it really hasn't impacted. Absolutely, material supplies, shortages, like we've had to be 10 steps ahead when it comes to
getting materials.
Getting materials. So like we've done things like we found out that there was going to be a plywood shortage, and we went and ordered 2 semi-loads of plywood because we needed those for roofs that we were doing. And, we've had to do some of that stuff and create realistic expectations of homeowners. Like,
right.
Trying to get ahead and be proactive with that stuff has impacted us. But it's really honestly we've been able to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad it didn't hit too hard. Okay. So one last question. You have a little tiny theme of working a lot and getting burnout, right? Yeah. Am I sensing that? How, and I know that you just told me you hired all these people to help you.
Yep.
Do you feel like you're protected and wise enough now to have some ways to avoid that happening again?
I would say becoming a NICU mom was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So I was forced, and I was, when I became pregnant, I was intentionally handing things off and training things to people, that I spent about 6 months, but I didn't even make it till 30 weeks in my pregnancy. So I lost 10 weeks of my pregnancy. And, when you're faced with how am I going to keep my child, like my child needs so much from me. What does this look like? I handed off a lot. And the other thing that it's really interesting in the last 6 months, I've had to really become diligent about I have about 40 hours in a week that I have childcare. So unless I'm working in the evening and because I'm still waking up at night breastfeeding, I don't have the margin to do that. So I have a lot of habits and rituals that are really protecting me as far as like, I don't necessarily look at my phone until my workday starts at 9. I have assistants that pull things off my to-do list and, or pull things out of my inbox that I don't need to see. And I work. So I do think that I have gotten to a point where I also think that my health kind of played into that too, because my health hasn't always been the greatest. And so I worked really diligently to get my health to a place where it's good. And so I always had, I don't know when this transition happened, probably in the last couple of years. I always felt like taking time for myself was selfish and and I had this fear of being lazy. And I realized that actually the flip is true, that it's actually selfish for me not to take care of myself, because if I don't take care of myself, I break. And then I put myself in a position where I have all of these people dependent on me. And then all of a sudden,
I break. And then I'm a butthole to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then what does that look like if I can't show up and I can't perform? And what's that look like? I've started prioritizing taking care of myself before I have to.
Right. Yeah, I know. I think that it's just like, I feel very similar to you, where it's just like, oh, because I'm put together in a way where I can handle more than most people, that I will push that envelope way further than like any human should. And then it's like, I'm not getting out of bed for 3 days because I've either gotten sick or, something like that, where my body's just like, no, like you cannot continue at this pace.
Yep. And that's exactly what would happen to me. And actually I got so sick and I think that I probably ended up with COVID early on in 2020. And I think I ended up with long COVID because I actually could not remember how to do basic math the fall of 2020. And so it was like, okay, there needs to be some changes here, or I'm not going to keep this business. Like it was like, I have to do one of two things here. I have to make changes where I hire the right people that can take this where I want it to go. I'm just kind of hovering above and then dropping down to the battlefield if there's a moment that they need me, and then coming right back up. Right.
I love that perspective. Well, Sarah, this has been so enjoyable, and you have so much knowledge and you've done so many incredible things, and you're a mama, and I am just so honored to have you. And thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. Tell people where they can hire you, follow you, like you, all the things.
So it's www.ardmorconstruction.com, ARDMOR, and then construction all spelled out. And I think, let me just double check. I think our Instagram is just Ardmor Construction.
Perfect. What areas, like if somebody's near you and they want to hire you, what areas do you service?
So we have 3 branches. So we have a branch in Rochester, Minnesota, where the Mayo Clinic is. We have a branch in the Twin Cities metro area. And so we service basically the whole metro area over into Hudson, Wisconsin. We actually do have a license in Wisconsin. So we service Western Wisconsin. And then we have a branch in St. Cloud. And so we go about an hour and a half outside of each of those locations. The Twin Cities will go a little bit further out than that. So we're basically eastern.
Fine. That area is perfect.
That area. Yeah.
Minnesota, Wisconsin.
You're asking me all these hard things.
I know. He's like,
now they're like, what? I have to tell you where I live, where we work.
Those are difficult questions. It's like, what did you have for dinner last night? I have no idea. Okay. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Stephanie. It was nice to meet you.
You too.
Thanks for joining me today on the She Build Show. My name is Stefanie Olson. My hope is that this episode leaves you feeling empowered and ready to boldly take that step into building the life that you envision, 1 2x4 at a time. And if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. I get giddy over reading the reviews each week, and I will choose one special person to win some She Build swag. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out if you're the winner. Thanks again for hanging out. Be sure to visit me at theshebuildshow.com, where you can ask me questions and share with me what you're building.